Welcome to the entertainment Talking Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. I plan on having at least one more up with the updated salary cap for the New York Giants, as requested by several of my subscribers yesterday, and going over some of the things that I think the New York Giants could do to try to free some more cap space up, and then explaining the expenses that the New York Giants must go through this offseason, and then kind of getting a roundabout as to what I think they will have to spend come, free agency March 16th when they could spend on some of these players. Now, the big story that came out, and I was alerted, not just by Josina Anderson, but several of my subscribers. I always thank you guys for that. As soon as the news dropped, Josina Anderson came out and said that the New York Giants and the Indianapolis Colts both could have significant interest in Jadeveon Clowney. And it only makes sense. I would think a lot of teams would have interest in Jadeveon Clowney. I'm not going to get too excited about this, but we will dive into Clowney and how he would potentially fit with the New York Giants. But I will tell you guys why I think he will not be a New York Giant. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to be realistic. I would love him here. Matter of fact, I think a lot of people underrate Clowney because he doesn't have eye-popping sack numbers, but the 27-year-old is a very, very good all-around player, and he's incredibly versatile, something that Joe Judge wants. This guy has experience as an outside linebacker, as a defensive end up at the 4-3 alignment, as well as a middle linebacker. One of the most underrated attributes of Jadeveon Clowney is his run defense. He's one of the best run defenders in all of football, and the tackles don't tell the whole story because he doesn't have these great tackles. So if you listen to somebody that says he doesn't get a lot of tackles, so he's not a good run defender, that's not the truth. Jadeveon Clowney has a reputation for being an elite run defender for a defensive end. He's also very good in coverage because of his athleticism. So I think he would be coveted if he did hit the open market. And I think he's going to hit the open market if I had to guess. Now, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, as to why I thought it was a smart move for the Seahawks to trade for Clowney, and even if they let him go, because if they let him go, they're going to get a comp pick. He's going to get paid $20 million a year. That's what these edge rushers are going to get paid, and they will receive that third-round pick back that they gave up to get him, as he gave them an opportunity to go for it. Now, last year, Clowney got hurt, but I read a lot of articles of the teammates really said that they had a lot of respect for him as he played through the injury. He didn't go on the IR, and he played through, and was a big reason as to why the Seahawks were successful as they were this year. This guy's a very strong all-around player. But let's jump into the tweet, and let's talk a little bit more about Jadeveon Clowney. Here is the tweet by Josina Anderson. My understanding is that the Giants and the Colts are among teams that could potentially have some interest in impending unrestricted free agent Jadeveon Clowney per sources. And this very well may be the case. As a matter of fact, I think it would be the case. But I don't just think it would be those two teams, but they both make sense. I think the Colts have the second most cap space in all of football. They could use an edge rusher, and there's rumors that the Colts are trying to acquire Phillip Rivers. They also could potentially be in the Tom Brady sweepstakes, as it's looking more and more likely that Brady could potentially leave the New England Patriots. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. Now, I don't think Brady would go to the Colts, but they might be the best situation for him based on their offensive line. They need a couple of weapons, but the Colts certainly have a lot of money to spend. I think they're a team that's looking to compete this year. When they look at their offensive line, when they look at their improving defense, they probably feel like they're a couple of pieces away if they could add Phillip Rivers to competing for a Super Bowl. And I think Jadeveon Clowney could be a big piece for them, and it makes a lot of sense. For the Giants, of course it makes sense. The New York Giants could use as much help as they could get on the defensive side of the football. This guy is an all-around football player. He's a veteran. We all remember him coming out of college. He was one of the most highly regarded players coming out of college. I remember his combine. People kind of knocked him for the bench press because I think he only did like 20 or 21 reps. But, he had a great 40 time. He's incredibly athletic, and he would add a lot to this defense. And his versatility would be something that I think Joe Judge and Patrick Graham would look for. So I'm not surprised at all in hearing that the New York Giants are interested in him. But I would be surprised if they do end up with him, and I'll explain why in a second. Next thing I wanted to pull up for you guys were his stats, and this is why I don't think you could just judge a player off his stats. Before we even look at the numbers, look at the positions this guy has played. He came into the league as an outside linebacker. He played linebacker for the first 2 years. Then he played a hybrid role in 2016 when he made his first Pro Bowl. He played both as a D-end and as an outside linebacker. Then in 17, he even played some time at the middle linebacker along with the outside linebacker and the D-end. And again in 18, he played both. This year, he played strictly as a defensive end in 2019. He had 3 straight Pro Bowls from 16 to 18. The sack numbers don't jump off the page, like I said. Now, part of that may have to do with the fact that he didn't play defensive end really until 2016. Maybe his role was more to be a run defender and a guy in coverage, something that he certainly is strong at. But once he really got the opportunity to play the DN, you saw the sack numbers start to creep up. He had 9.5, 9. This year, like I said, he had an injury and he had 3. But this guy is not just a pass rusher, a guy that's strictly a pass rusher, like some of the guys we've been looking at, Unique Ngakoue, for example. This is a complete football player, a guy that is fantastic against the run. He's great at diagnosing the run, and he could also drop back in coverage, and we'll get into that in a second. Here is what was said about Clowney in an article regarding him as a run defender when he was acquired by the Seattle Seahawks. Clowney is also an elite run defender. The fifth-year pro was the second best edge defender against the run last year, per PFF, and has had a better grade in run defense than in pass rushing in each of the past 3 seasons. Of course, that's not the reason the Seahawks traded for him. Clowney had nearly twice as many snaps where he rushed the passer as he did defending the run last year, per PFF. And then they later went on to say that he was one of the best off the snap, but it didn't translate to sacks. And it's something that has not translated, since he's been a pro. He's never had more than 9.5 sacks in a season. But I think he's a complete football player, and I think he's somebody that would bring instant credibility to the New York Giants pass rush. I think he would draw double teams. I think it would help guys like Lorenzo Carter, O'Shane Ximenez, guys like that. And I think he'd be a guy that a lot of New York Giants fans would be excited about. The problem is, I don't see him coming here, and this is the main reason. When Jadeveon Clowney was asked about what teams, he didn't give individual teams. This was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But when he was asked about what type of team he would like to sign on with if the Seattle Seahawks let him go, this is what he had to say. Now, at the end of the day, money talks, but I think a player like Clowney is going to have options. I don't think he's one of these players that's only going to get one offer. I think there's going to be multiple teams, 3, 4, 5 teams, that would be willing to give him $20 to $22 million. I think he's a very talented player. I think a lot of teams look at him. They see even has more potential upside, and I think he would get a big contract. He's the biggest name that would probably be on the free agency market at his position if he were to hit it, or among one of the biggest names. So this is the main reason why I don't see him going to the Giants. I just want to win, Clowney said via Joe Fan of NBCSportsNorthwest.com. I want to get that Super Bowl by any means. That's what I'm looking for. Who's going to get me there? I'm not looking to get on no sorry team for no money. That ain't going to fly. And I'm not calling the New York Giants a sorry team. I love the New York Giants, and I think they're building the team the right way. But if you're a guy from the outside looking in and you're being completely unbiased, the last 2 years the Giants have won 4 and 5 games. There's a lot of teams out there that have cap space that are much more proven winners than the New York Giants have been in recent years. Clowney is going to get an offer from a team that has a better history. The Colts, for example. The Colts are a year removed from the playoffs, and if they were to sign Phillip Rivers, they'd be able to sell him on the fact that we have the best offensive line. We just brought in a veteran quarterback. We're a year removed from the divisional playoffs. They would be able to offer a lot more next year in terms of the win column than the New York Giants would. That's just facts. That's just honesty. And that is the main reason why I don't see him going to the Giants. I think there's going to be a bunch of teams that are willing to give him the same amount of money that the Giants would if the Giants are interested. And I have no doubt that they probably are. And there's probably a better situation for him in terms of win now next year. He's not very young. The guy's going to be 27 or 28 next year. So he's probably got 3 or 4 years left where he feels like he could play at the top level and he wants to try to compete for a championship as soon as possible. He later went on to say, I'm not going to fight through all that just to lose 16 games and go home with my check. I hate that. That ain't what I'm doing. If I can't do that, I'm not going to no team that can't win. And I'm not saying that the New York Giants are that. New York Giants are certainly not a team next year that I expect to lose all 16 games. I think the Giants are a team that's going to be much more competitive. I think they'll be in games. I don't think they're going to get embarrassed. I love the coaching staff. But for a free agent that's looking to win right now and not looking to just cash in, like Jadeveon Clowney says, even though I'm sure if the Giants were the only team willing to give him the money that he commands, he'd sign there. I just don't think that'll be the case, though. I don't even think it'll just be the Colts. I think the Jets, I think there's a number of teams. There's 5 teams probably that would be willing to give this guy $20 million a year because they don't just look at the sack numbers. They know that this guy is an impact player. All you had to do last year was watch some of those Seahawks games down the stretch, and even though he may not have been getting sacks, you saw the impact he had on the opposing offense. The guy's a very good football player. Is he worth $20 or $22 million? Probably not. But unfortunately, in today's NFL, that's the going rate if you want to get a difference maker on the defensive side of the football. And Jadeveon Clowney is a difference maker. Is it possible he ends up with the Giants? Anything's possible, but I'm not going to bank on it. I'd be surprised if he ends up a New York Giant. I do think there's a solid chance he hits the open market and maybe ends up with the Colts, or, we'll have to wait and see other teams that could potentially be interested in him. Of course, the Seahawks could potentially look to tag and trade him. We'll get that answer in about a week as we wait to see who the New York Giants will attack in free agency. And it seems as if Jadeveon Clowney could potentially be one of those names. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.